Welcome to Deep Dive Podcast, episode number 8. Ever feel like your brain is constantly hopping from one tab to another? Even when you're really trying to focus on just one thing?
Maybe scrolling through your phone, just jumping between apps.
Exactly. And you just struggle to stick with a single task for more than, a minute.
Mm-hmm.
If that sounds familiar, well, you are definitely not alone. Today on the Deep Dive, we're plunging into something that affects pretty much all of us. Our shrinking attention spans.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Our mission here is to unpack some really compelling research and practical strategies from a few different sources. We want to understand why our focus feels like it's fraying at the edges.
And crucially, what we can actually do about it, how we can reclaim some of that focus in this, let's face it, incredibly wild digital world.
That's right.
So what we're aiming for is to synthesize these groundbreaking insights, especially from researchers like Dr. Gloria Mark at the University of California, Irvine. We'll look at the hard science behind this kind of alarming decline in attention and explore what it means for, well, everything. Our work, our relationships, even just our general well-being.
Think of this deep dive as your shortcut, maybe, to understanding this critical modern challenge that frankly, feels like it's subtly rewiring our brains.
Definitely.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the scale of this, let's look at the hard numbers. Dr. Gloria Mark's research, the stuff you mentioned from UC Irvine, she's been tracking this for, nearly 2 decades?
Yeah, about that. And the data is pretty eye-opening.
So back in 2003, people typically spend about 2.5 minutes, that's 150 seconds on a screen, before switching tasks.
Can you imagine? 2.5 solid minutes.
It sounds like ancient history now, doesn't it?
It really does, because by 2012, that number had already plunged down to 75 seconds.
Wow, cut in half.
And the recent data, the stuff from her ongoing work, it clocks our average attention on a single screen at just 47 seconds.
47 seconds.
Yeah.
Less than a minute before our minds just dart off somewhere else.
Yeah. Exactly, and her methodology is solid. She uses things like stopwatch tracking, computer logging, really precise tools to measure these task switches.
So it's not just a feeling we have.
No, definitely not. It's a quantifiable, measurable decline in our ability to sustain focus.
And what's really fascinating, maybe a bit alarming too, is that it's not just our individual focus shrinking, right? There's this other study.
Yes, the Nature Communications one. It talks about social acceleration.
Right. What does that mean exactly?
Well, basically, it suggests that even collectively as a society, topics hold our interest for shorter and shorter periods. Why? Because we're just bombarded with so much information all the time.
Information overload.
Precisely. If you connect this to the bigger picture, it points to a huge shift in our collective attention span. The new just replaces the now incredibly quickly.
How do they measure that?
They looked at things like Twitter hashtags between 2013 and 2016, and they found topics just lost steam much faster than they used to. And they saw a similar pattern with Google searches between 2010 and 2018. Topics just faded much more rapidly.
So we're not just individually fragmented. Our whole society is kind of struggling to hold a steady focus on any one thing for very long.
That seems to be the trend, yeah.
There's that myth that keeps popping up that our attention span is shorter than a goldfish's, like 8 seconds or something.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Good news, everyone. It's been debunked. So you're officially more focused than a goldfish.
Aha, well, that's a relief.
But seriously, even if it's not goldfish level, 47 seconds of screen focus before switching. That's still a massive wake-up call, isn't it?
Absolutely. It suggests we're in this sort of invisible battle against constant distraction.
So what's actually happening to our brains? Why is concentration such a struggle these days? It's obviously not just one simple thing.
Oh, far from simple. No. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the causes are really interconnected. It's like a complex web constantly pulling at our attention.
Where do we even start?
Well, let's start with the obvious culprits.
Yeah.
Digital distractions. Every single notification that pinged from email, a text, social media,
Right.
each one triggers a little dopamine hit in your brain. And that's not just a fleeting thing, it's a powerful reinforcement. It basically trains your brain like a slot machine.
Oh, interesting analogy.
Yeah, it trains you to constantly seek that next little reward. It conditions you to just reflexively check your devices almost without thinking.
And that constant reward seeking, that leads right into the whole myth of multitasking, right? We think we're being super productive juggling 5 things.
But the research consistently shows it just tanks productivity and cognitive performance, too.
But what's really going on?
You get task switching fatigue, And this state of continuous partial attention, where your focus is always divided but never really deep on anything.
You're just doing lots of things badly.
Pretty much. You're doing many things poorly instead of one thing well. And look, this isn't accidental.
What do you mean?
Social media platforms, a lot of apps, they're engineered with this in mind. They are designed specifically to capture and hold your attention, to foster that habit of seeking quick dopamine rewards.
Which makes it incredibly hard to settle down for that deep focus work that really requires mental effort.
Exactly. And then you pile on the sheer volume of information overload we face every day. Our brains just aren't built for this constant fire hose of data.
Leads to decision fatigue.
Yep, decision fatigue, reduced memory retention, and this tendency we develop to just skim everything rather than truly absorb or analyze it.
And it's not just what's on our screens, is it? Our lifestyles play a huge role too, probably more than we realize.
Oh, massive. Absolutely massive. Take sleep deprivation. If you're not getting enough quality sleep, it directly messes with your attention, your memory, your executive functions.
Your brain literally just can't perform at its peak.
Nope. It needs that rest to consolidate, to clear things out, and it goes beyond sleep. Lack of exercise, a poor diet, those also significantly impact cognitive function.
It's all connected.
Incredibly interconnected. There's a quote from Dr. Sarah Thompson, a neurologist. She puts it perfectly. The body is interconnected, so when you're not taking care of one aspect of your health, it can have a ripple effect on your ability to concentrate.
Makes total sense. And of course, stress. Chronic stress and just plain old fatigue are huge contributors to feeling scattered.
Massive. Absolutely.
Okay, and then there's the whole area of mental health and other medical factors, things like anxiety, depression.
Right. Those conditions can directly disrupt the neural pathways involved in attention, making it incredibly difficult to sustain concentration when you're dealing with that.
And this raises an important question, doesn't it? Especially
Yeah.
when the struggle feels like more than just everyday stress or too many emails.
Exactly. Beyond anxiety and depression, you have other potential underlying medical conditions. Things like ADHD, chronic fatigue syndrome, even severe insomnia can profoundly impact concentration.
And medications too sometimes.
Yes, that's important to remember. Certain medications, think some psychiatric drugs, even some pain relievers or antihistamines, can have focus issues as a side effect.
So if you suspect that, it's really crucial to talk to your doctor.
Absolutely. Review it with a healthcare professional. Don't just stop taking medication, obviously, but have that conversation.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Mm.
How does this whole attention crisis play out across different age groups? Because the impact apparently isn't the same for everyone.
No, it's not uniform. This raises an important question, and that Frontiers in Cognition study offers some really compelling insights. It shows how these focus challenges shift across our lifespans.
And for kids, the findings are kind of stark. Right?
They really are. For children, their attention spans were found to drop by a significant 27.41% during tasks, almost a third.
Wow.
And what's even more striking is that this decline often mirrors ADHD-like patterns, even in kids who don't have an official diagnosis.
So the environment itself might be creating these patterns.
It strongly suggests that, yeah. On average, the study found kids manage only about 29.61 seconds of focused attention. Less than 30 seconds.
That's sobering, especially thinking about their developing brains in this distraction-heavy world.
It really is. It suggests they might be disproportionately impacted.
So, less than half a minute for kids. What about young adults? How do they fare?
Interestingly, the study found that young adults, typically defined as, say, 18 to 35, they tend to hold attention the longest. They averaged around 76 seconds.
Okay, so longer, but still not exactly hours of deep focus.
No, not at all. And then older adults, they averaged about 67 seconds.
So slightly less than young adults, but more than kids.
Right. The key takeaway here is that while these focus challenges are pretty universal now, how they show up and how severe they are varies quite a bit across the lifespan.
It really hints that our environment might be subtly resetting the baseline for focus for everyone, but maybe hitting different age groups differently.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so that's the somewhat grim picture. But the great news is you absolutely can fight back. This isn't some inevitable decline.
No, definitely not a losing battle.
And we've pulled together some of the most effective, science-backed strategies from our sources to help you actually strengthen your attention muscle, so to speak, and reclaim your focus.
That's That's a critical point. This isn't about finding some magic bullet or quick fix. It's really about building mental stamina and consciously changing habits in sustainable ways. Basically, outsmarting your own biology and environment.
So where do we start? What's actionable?
Let's start with our environment and our digital habits. These are often the easiest things to tackle first and can give you some immediate wins. First and foremost, turn off non-essential notifications.
The pings.
Exactly. Use Do Not Disturb mode when you need to focus. Mute those noisy group chats. Maybe designate specific times, like twice a day, to check emails and messages instead of reacting instantly.
Just removing those constant triggers, that slot machine effect you mentioned.
Precisely. It immediately reduces that constant pull from your devices.
Okay, that makes sense. And building on that, what about our physical space?
Also huge. Create a space that's actually conducive to focus. That means clearing the clutter off your desk. Visual clutter is mental clutter.
I feel seen.
Yeah. Use noise-canceling headphones if you work in a noisy environment. Try to work in a quiet, well-lit area with minimal potential interruptions. These simple environmental tweaks can significantly reduce the cognitive load your brain is dealing with.
Less stuff competing for your attention.
Exactly. And closely related. Actively limit your social media usage. Set actual screen time limits on your apps. Your phone probably has tools for this.
Use the tech against itself.
Right. Use browser extensions like Newsfeed Eradicator. Those get rid of the infinitely scrolling, attention hijacking feeds. And maybe the hardest one, consider keeping your phone in a completely separate room when you're trying to do deep work.
Oof, that's a tough one, but probably effective.
It really is. And for an extra layer of defense, use website blockers. Tools like Cold Turkey, Freedom, or Forest, you can set them to block distracting websites during your core work hours. It literally stops you before you even start down that rabbit hole.
Taking away the temptation. Okay, so that's environment and tech habits. What about training the brain itself? Cognitive habits.
This is where you actively build that focus muscle back up. Embrace single tasking. Forget the multitasking myth and practice deep work.
How do you start with that? It feels daunting.
Dr. Gloria Mark actually suggests starting small. Try focusing on just one task for 20 minutes straight. Build up that stamina. You can also use techniques like the Pomodoro technique.
Oh yeah, the timer thing.
Right, 25 minutes of focused work, then a mandatory 5-minute break. Then repeat. For longer stretches, some people find 90-minute focus sessions work well, followed by a longer break. The key is training your brain to resist that urge to switch constantly.
And having a plan helps, right? Like a to-do list.
Absolutely critical. Work with a clear to-do list. Don't make it overwhelming. Start your day identifying just 3 to 5 key priorities. And break those big, daunting tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Makes it feel less like climbing Mount Everest.
Exactly. It prevents mental clutter and keeps you focused on the next small action. Another important thing is to notice your own patterns of inattention. Become aware of your specific triggers.
Like, what makes me lose focus?
Yeah. Is it hunger, boredom, a particular app notification, stress? Once you identify your triggers, you can proactively address them. Maybe you need a snack, or maybe you need to block that specific app during work hours.
Being your own focus detective.
Yeah. And setting achievable goals for tasks, even small ones, keeps you motivated. It gives your brain that sense of accomplishment and a clear target. Also, don't forget to keep your brain active generally. Puzzles, reading challenging books, learning a new skill. It helps maintain cognitive agility.
Okay, and finally, the physical well-being piece. You mentioned sleep, diet, exercise earlier.
Crucial foundations. And tied into that is taking smart breaks, not just switching from your work screen to your phone screen.
Guilty.
Haha, we all are sometimes. But a smart break means truly stepping away. Get up, stretch, walk around, look out the window, just breathe for 5-10 minutes. Let your brain actually recharge and reset away from screens.
And the basics.
The absolute non-negotiables. Get enough sleep. Aim for 7-8 hours of quality sleep. Get some daily physical activity. It boosts blood flow to the brain, releases endorphins, both vital for focus.
And food. Does what we eat really matter for focus?
Definitely. Eat a balanced diet. Focus on foods rich in omega-3s like fish, flax seeds, antioxidants like berries, and essential vitamins. You're literally feeding your brain the nutrients it needs for sustained attention.
Makes sense.
And one last powerful tool. Practice mindfulness meditation. Even just 10 minutes a day can significantly sharpen your focus and improve your attention control. It's like weight training for your attention muscle.
Training your brain to return to the present. Counteracting that scattered feeling.
Exactly. It's a potent counter to the default mode of our digital lives.
Okay, so we've got all these strategies, lifestyle changes, which is great. But it's also really important to know when this struggle with focus might be something more serious, right?
Hmm.
When should someone seek actual medical advice?
Yes, absolutely crucial distinction. This raises that important question. When does difficulty concentrating cross the line from needing lifestyle tweaks to needing professional help?
What are the signs?
If the concentration problems are persistent, really severe, or if they come with other concerning symptoms, it's time to consult a healthcare provider. We're talking about things like memory problems that are significantly impacting your daily life.
Like forgetting important appointments constantly, or struggling with familiar tasks.
Exactly.
Mm.
Or a noticeable decrease in performance at work or school that you can't explain. Persistent fatigue that goes beyond just feeling tired. Also, red flags include sudden severe headaches, any numbness or tingling, especially on one side of the body, sudden memory loss or feeling unaware of your surroundings, or sudden problems with speaking clearly.
Wow, okay. Those definitely sound like things you shouldn't ignore. If someone experiences those, what happens next? What's the medical evaluation like?
A doctor or healthcare provider will do a thorough evaluation. They'll ask detailed questions about your symptoms, your medical history, your lifestyle. They might order blood tests.
To check for what?
Things like nutritional deficiencies, maybe thyroid issues, hormonal imbalances, other underlying conditions that can affect cognition.
Mm.
Sometimes imaging tests like a CT scan or an MRI might be needed to look for structural issues in the brain.
And maybe brain activity tests.
In some cases, yes. An EEG, which measures electrical activity in the brain, might be used if certain neurological conditions are suspected.
And if they find something, or even if it's something like severe ADHD or anxiety, what are the treatment options then?
Well, treatment depends entirely on what the underlying cause is found to be. It could involve prescription medications, for example, to manage neurological or psychiatric conditions like ADHD or depression.
Therapy.
Very often, yes. Psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, or other types of behavioral therapy can be really effective, teaching coping mechanisms and strategies. And almost always, tailored lifestyle changes are part of the plan addressing sleep, stress, diet, exercise, specifically for that individual.
And this applies to kids too, right? If parents are concerned.
Absolutely. If a child is really struggling, evaluation is key. And treatment options might include behavioral strategies taught to parents and teachers, therapy for the child, or medication if something like ADHD is diagnosed and warrants it.
Okay, let's try and unpack this one last time. We've seen just how widespread this attention crisis really is,
Yeah.
from our individual screen time shrinking down to under a minute.
To that collective societal focus kind of fraying at the edges.
Yeah, but the really encouraging part is we've also armed you, hopefully, with a pretty comprehensive toolkit. Lots of science-backed strategies to actually fight back and build some genuine mental resilience.
The science definitely paints a clear picture of the challenge, but it absolutely offers hope too. Reclaiming focus, it's not about suddenly achieving perfect, unwavering concentration 24/7.
That sounds impossible.
Right, it's about making consistent, small steps,
Uh,
building that mental stamina over time, kind of like training a muscle, like we said.
so why should you really care about putting in this effort? Because look, a fading attention span, it impacts literally everything. Your productivity, sure, but also the quality and depth of your relationships, your ability to learn, and ultimately just your overall peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
But the really empowering thing to remember is you do have the power to outsmart these modern distractions. You can take back some control.
Absolutely.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. Imagine a world where more people consistently applied even just one or two of these strategies we talked about today.
Yeah.
Just one or two.
Yeah, what would that look like?
How might our collective attention, and with it, our capacity for deep thinking, for real innovation, for genuine human connection, how might that fundamentally shift? Maybe one more personally. What one strategy will you start with today to begin reclaiming your focus?